Portpatrick. Quite a little place with Salty Lass just down there at the bottom. So Bev, why the heck did it take us 4 hours to get from one side of Portpatrick on the harbour wall to the other wall in Portpatrick?
It took us 4 hours because we went for a little detour.
Big detour.
What we did was we decided to make our passage to the Isle of Man, and we did what we've always been trained to do, which is wait till you get to high water and go. And Portpatrick, because the harbour entrance is narrow and very rocky and it's quite a shallow harbour, leaving at high water made a lot of sense to us.
Especially as at low water there is no water under the keel at all, so that was definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
And as Bev says, it's such a rocky entrance. We needed as much water under our keel as possible. It was like, woo, need that water.
We hadn't gone very far out the entrance before we ran into a squall line. They're usually very narrow and very intense, and you punch through them and there's usually good weather on the other side. But the problem was the squall was straight on our nose, and we also had the tide running against us at this point. So the combination of tide and squall meant that we made very, very little progress through the water. And after 3 hours, we'd made a total of 7 miles progress.
Which is very little at all, you know,
is.
And it was just such hard going, and the boat was...
the boat wasn't enjoying it, neither were we.
Yeah, the squall line, the winds were gusting between, was it 5 and 6?
Yeah, they hit 4.7 occasionally at top of the gust.
Yeah, top of the gust it was 4.7, so it was very uncomfortable, and we just weren't making any progress whatsoever, were we?
No, so after 3 hours we decided this wasn't going to work, so we turned around and we went straight back to Portpatrick. It was only 7 nautical miles after 3 hours, and we made that back in 40 minutes.
40 minutes, which is nothing, you know, just sort of like it was so quick.
We were screaming along.
Yeah, so we got back and we were at the entrance to Portpatrick, and Bev had lined up the harbour with the leading line, and then behind that there's another line on the house which she managed to get all beautifully lined up, and she had an absolutely cracking line on it. And we were coming in nice and slow when we were slammed by a huge wave, because the waves were going straight across the harbour. And we went from this beautiful leading line to about 45 degrees off, and we were looking straight at the rocks that were just below the lighthouse. Now Bev didn't take any seconds at all. She's great. She just sort of like, we were going off into the rocks and she just turned the boat straight away, and we were out back into the sea at that point, weren't we?
Yeah, I just bore away from the rocks, straight back out to where I had good water around me, and at that point then I put the nose of the boat into the wind and just adjusted the engine so we could hold station, handed it over to Gaynor and went down below and got on the radio. Now, as you can see from the videos, the Coast Guard station in Portpatrick could actually see our boat, and we could see them, and the lifeboat was only literally a shout away, quite literally. So we got on the radio and we said we need assistance to get into the harbour. There are no other harbours in this part of the coast. You either go into Portpatrick or you go on a long journey, and it clearly...
It's about 5 to 6 hours, because that's what we did it last time, was for Sunway. It was 5 to 6 hours. So that's, you know, we were all, even though it was just 3 hours we'd been out, well, it was 4 hours by then, you know, we were already getting tired, because, you know, when you're fighting the boat and you're fighting the conditions, it really does tire you out quite a bit, to be honest.
So the RNLI came out in their big lifeboat and their 1,000 horsepower engines, and they said, follow us, stay in our wake, and stay close behind us. So we did that, and they revved their big engines up and sent a huge wave over the top of our boat.
That was quite scary actually, because you know, we were all sort of like quite happy, and then all of a sudden these big engines and the boat just was like, whoa!
Yeah.
So,
but after that, the sea just flattened out in all directions. So the sea just went totally flat behind the lifeboat, and we just went straight in behind it, and he went in
the slowest he could go.
And we went in about as fast as we could go, and it was just completely flat all the way behind the big lifeboat. So we just stayed in there. We went into the harbour, and to be honest, we were so tired and exhausted, and
we also were a little bit shaken up as well.
Yeah.
So they needed to help us tie her up, because we were just that little bit sort of like, you know, nervous and things.
Yeah, and we couldn't get back onto the original wall. I just couldn't do it. I was just...
So we got onto the other wall, and then once we got ourselves all tied up, we went up to the RNLI office and had a beautiful cup of tea.
Yeah, we went up to the RNLI lifeboat station, and they made us a cup of tea, and we had some biscuits and a good chat, and they said to us that in their opinion we'd made the right decision. They say that too many times people wait until it's too late. So instead of going out and resolving a situation which is becoming bad but hasn't yet become a crisis, sometimes they go out and just wind up picking bodies out of the rocks and out of the water, and they don't want to do that. They would much rather come out before the situation turns really critical and give a hand and assistance and bring you back in one piece. That's their preferred method of doing it. So the next thing they did was they had a look at our route, and they said our route was fine, we just needed to make a small course adjustment at one particular point. And they also told us a better time of day to leave, which is 2 hours before low water. Now, in Portpatrick, that means you've got less than a metre of water under your keel.
But what that does is it meant that the tide was going with us.
The tidal stream across the entrance was a southerly stream at that point.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, rather than having the tide against us, we've got the tide going with us. And you stay close in for the first 2 hours, and then you can then go out into the mainstream, because then the mainstream
has also
reverses, but it reverses inside, quite close to the land, 2 hours before.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really good local knowledge. The other thing that they told us about the local knowledge was at the bottom of the mole, wasn't it, Bev?
Yes, there's a lot of tidal rips and a couple of whirlpools and things like that. They told us the best route to take to avoid those particular things.
So we basically needed to stay, once we'd gone close in, we then needed to go further out so that we avoided the rip tides that's at the bottom of the mole.
So one of the things the cell highlights is the RNLI and the fact that they're a complete volunteer organisation. They're completely funded by voluntary donation, and they receive no funding or oversight from government. Now, we've always given to RNLI, and when we're at marine events and things like that, we see their stand, we make a point of going over and putting some money in and things like that. But we think this episode just demonstrates you know, they're there when you need them. I mean,
it was just it's what's called in their terminology just a shout, but from my point of view, it really just made sure that we got back in alive. And in one piece. Which is why what we'd like to do with this video is to share it, but we've also got a Just Giving link in the description below. So, you know, if you just sort of like donate £1 or something like that, if you don't want to donate, even just sharing the video might mean that somebody else might want to donate to the RNLI. And that's what we're going to do with this video, won't we, Bev?
All donations go straight to the RNLI, they don't come to us. So
it's all through the Just Giving site, so it's all sorted out through them, so that's what we're doing.
Alright, so that's the story of what happened, of how it took us 4 hours to get from one wall to another. Or, in fact, actually probably took us a bit more than 4 hours, because we did go and have a very, very lengthy cup of tea and a good long chat.
Yeah, but we were tied up by then.
Yeah. No, we weren't. The boat was.
The boat was, yeah.
Keep your fantasies out of this.